Hi, this is Rich from Marvelous Ministries. I am now going to share transparently some of my life and my marriage with my wife. Her name is Melody. She was the subject of the song by Matthew West, Survivors, and she is a survivor. When I married her, I married a beautiful, intelligent, strong, godly, faithful woman. And I'm seeing time and time again her strength. Well, after she was partially paralyzed, it put a lot of challenges in our marriage. I have a wife that's in a wheelchair. We live in a 2-story home. So, me being as handy as I am, started searching Craigslist for a stair lift chair. And that gets her up the main part of our staircase, but not all the way up. I mean, if I was home and not separated, I would gladly put in an elevator and make some other changes for her. We honestly really need to move to another house, but I'm still trying to get my feet back on the ground after my brain injury and loss of my career and so forth. But new normal without going into every detail about what's normal and what's not normal anymore, is think about being married to somebody that has cancer, that is eating away inside of her body, robbing and stealing her of things that healthy people take for granted. Now she can't walk, she can't drive, she's not as independent. Okay, we've got a stair chair. I changed my schedule at work, sacrificing for her. The most important thing, I still need an income because we need money to, have a home and take care of ourselves. So I did those changes. I would get up in the morning, I would go downstairs, I would make her breakfast, I would make her espresso, I'd serve her in bed, I'd take care of her. She didn't have to cook. We as a family were pulling together. While at the same time, things were beneath the surface that were going to blow us apart. But my wife would come up with a new normal when something else would happen during our journey with cancer. We would sit down and talk about it, and we'd mourn the things we lost. And then we would be thankful for the things that remained. My wife is still with me. How many people don't get 26 years after being diagnosed with cancer? How many people don't get 12 years after being diagnosed with stage 4 cancer? Jeremy Camp lost his bride 3.5 months after they got married. Heartbreaking, horrifying. It's also heartbreaking to know the person you love is in pain physically, emotionally. The most important thing to her is her legacy, pouring out her abilities, her gifts, her talents, her knowledge, her wisdom into her children to hopefully help them to grow up to be the best versions of themselves possible, even with the things robbed and stolen from her. She wants them to enjoy life. She wants them to enjoy education and learning. She wants them to find out their purpose in life and who they are in Christ and so much more. It's been very, very challenging for her, for them, for us as a family. Even more so now, as we're completely blown apart. But how many people would still love each other if some of the most important things to people as human beings are taken from you, stolen from you, you're robbed of, and you have to accept the loss, to mourn the loss and then let it go. Christopher Reeve started out having very, very dark times, and then eventually worked down to only 20 minutes a day, where he would think about what happened to his life, his body, who he was, and then who he became. His new normal, a quadriplegic, no longer able to feel, the touch, some of the senses taken from him. His new normal. Well, we had a new normal too. But what remains? Is what remains more important to you than what you lose? And that's some of the growth and changes I've seen in life during this separation. Am I mourning? Am I more focused on what I'm not getting met by my wife, according to Ephesians 5? Or do I mourn the loss of her love, of just her affection, of just sharing life together, being close, of having a close, loving family? What is it you mourn the most? How many people in healthy, normal, regular marriages as Christians don't make it? I mean, they say it's what, 50%? 50% now? When I got married, cancer, you have a child that has some mental issues that are medicated and so forth, but the odds for us were like 90% we're going to be divorced. Then throw on top of that, now I have a partially paralyzed wife, stage 4 cancer. Now I have a brain injury, damaged arthritis and nerve damage in my neck, down my arms and legs, hands and feet, lose your career, all those things. What are the odds if we stay together? I mean, we're separated. I don't want to divorce my wife. I won't divorce my wife because I love God first and foremost, before and above everything. And I still love my wife and my children and my family, and I love myself. Before I was separated in 2020, I didn't love all those things. I don't know if I loved any of those things except for my wife and kids. But then pain and heartache got in the way. I didn't love myself. I rejected myself most of my life. I loved God only enough for my past to not go to hell, but to end up in heaven. I didn't trust him. And now all that stuff's changed. Change when things are the worst. When things are the worst, I finally have the proper foundation. You see, I was codependent on my wife. She was my emotional support. If she and I were good, then I felt better. But when we weren't good, I was a disaster. The broken man that was being hidden by a wife loving me enough to marry me, was exposed. Jesus came to set the captives free. I call them entanglements. See, I vowed at 20 I'd never date again. Well, when I did that, I somehow took God out of the picture, and I still got married somehow. I don't know how that happened, how God worked around my vow. But I guess that's because I didn't seek to get married. I had a desire, but I didn't think to myself, how am I going to make that happen? Or how's that going to happen? I don't know. But here's where I am. The fall of 2020, after I was separated, staying in my friend's house. He had a house that he had purchased 4 years previously. They stripped it down to the bare studs. All they reused was the electrical and the plumbing. They should have redone that too. But so here it was, 4 years of them working on this. He's in all these different contractors and guys that he knew and had connections with that were doing things. And suddenly I'm staying there. It was wonderful. It was still fairly close to my wife's and my home and close to my work. But by September, I was already on vacation. I was being demoted a second time. And they told me to take a couple extra weeks. And while I was gone, I decided to have my shoulder operated on for a 4th time. You see, after I quit dating when I was 20, I was looking for something exciting enough to keep me alive. And there's a song that I'm thinking of writing and working on called Two Fears. We have the knowledge of good and evil. Well, there's a good fear and there's an evil fear. Good fear keeps you alive. The evil fear keeps you from living. Well, my good fear, the boundary was out there pretty far. I wasn't afraid, if I was impatient on a chairlift, to jump off the chairlift and go skiing down the hill and at least be skiing instead of sitting on a stop chair. I had some friends when I was 20, 21 that he had an identical car to me, and we wanted to find out why the second barrel of the carburetor didn't open. This is an old 77 Celica. So we took the hood off one night, and we went down to a side road on the side of the freeway, and I laid up on top of where the hood normally was and hanging onto the shock tower and both feet on the upper radiator support, reached up under the carburetor, and he drove down the road and went flying down the road, and I found out how to manually force that second barrel open on the carburetor. We came back after a second pass. He's like, dude, you're doing 100 miles an hour, laying up where the hood's supposed to be. It was fun. It was exciting. Or the time I was doing 150 miles an hour on a motorcycle. Those kinds of things. Well, eventually I went out and I started doing dirt bike racing. First I was doing some trail riding in May of 1990. And it was my first time buying a dirt bike. And I'd ridden a little bit previously, just on like logging roads and stuff like that, but nothing on a track. And very quickly caught the track bug, and through that I broke many bones. I didn't care. I didn't care about crashing. I didn't care about hurting. I didn't feel like I had a future. So in 1994, I had broke my right humerus, my upper arm, right up at the shoulder, and they had to put 3 screws in it, and eventually the bone died and so forth. And since that time, after I got married, I've had 2 surgeries. One was to put a post and a metal ball on it, and then I had another surgery to put a new ball and a plastic socket on it. So I got a total replacement. Well, through some other things, I had tore my rotator cuff completely off my arm. And so I went in for that September of 2020. And so I had 12 weeks of medical leave. And after 6 weeks after my surgery, my wife texted me a update on her cancer screen, and it was horrifying. All the tumors were bigger, she had new ones, and here I was separated from the woman I love, my gift from God. And she appeared to be going into her final season of life without me. And I texted her if she had any chocolate. She's pretty frugal, and she said she was worried about money since I wasn't bringing in money at the time. But we were going to get some money with the medical leave, and I wasn't okay with that. I didn't want Satan to rob us of joy another day. And so I ran out to the Cheesecake Factory, and I texted my oldest daughter and son-in-law about what they would want, and also asking to double check what my son and daughter would want. See, I was separated from my family. I was estranged, and really nobody was really talking to me. They'd text me a little bit. And it's since gotten worse, actually. But I ran a Cheesecake Factory, and I bought everybody cheesecake, and I bought one for me, and I just left the one that I had for me there, so they had an extra one in case somebody wanted some more chocolate, because that's what I wanted to do, was get my wife some chocolate. Then I went back to this house I was staying at. It was 3 stories, 4,500 square feet on 2 acres, surrounded by 100-foot trees all the way around. And I did a carpet dive, face first on the ground, flopping around like a fish out of water, bawling my eyes out, because the woman I love was progressing in her cancer, and things are getting worse. And I might miss the final season of her life, being separated. But while that happened, I heard God say, "Can I take that?" And he was referring to the vow. When I made this vow, I sealed up what was left of my heart when I was 20 years old, 1987. Just before I turned 21, I vowed I'd never date again. I took what was left of my broken heart and my emotions and pain and feelings from when I was dating before a Christian. It was horrifying. And I sealed it up and kept it inside of me. I could relate it to being like Hanford radioactive waste you put in a barrel, but yeah, where do you want to store it? Let's put it inside of me. And since probably 2010 or 2012, 2010-ish, I had felt a knife to my heart from a family member that said something and wrote something that hurt me, and it opened up that barrel, and it was leaking into my heart and contaminating my home. And I'll tell more of this on the next video.